Monocle on Design on Monocle Radio is brought to you in association with Sixpenny. When the world feels overwhelming, find a little comfort amid the chaos. Take a breath and think of Sixpenny. Sixpenny's reimagining luxury at home, producing extraordinarily comfortable, endlessly customizable, and entirely handmade furniture. Sixpenny believes that no matter the shape, size, or state of your home, it should be the most comfortable, personal, enriching space in your world. Your furniture designed to enrich your life, ensuring every day is time well spent. Visit sixpenny.com/monocle for a browse through Sixpenny's impeccably designed pieces and order yourself a set of free swatches. That's sixpenny.com/monocle. Sixpenny, reimagining luxury at home.
Attention to detail. It's essential to good design and being a good designer. But it's not just about consideration for unsung finishes and small moments. It's also about looking for opportunities in everything from waste material to imperfections and mistakes. It's about considering the user beyond the physical space, whether in the workshop, office, home, or hotel. It's about being in the moment. This is Monocle on Design.
I really observe how also that kind of skill are going to be sadly lost if we are not doing nothing to preserve that.
And I think once you start to realize that design is about understanding how people come together and how they exist in a place, that transcends project types.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. On today's program, a recap of AlUla Arts Festival 2026, preserving Nichecraft in the design industry with Luca Nichetto, and rethinking the office space with interior designer David Galullo. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. I'm with my colleague Grace Charlton. Grace, how are you? Where have you been?
I'm good, thank you. I was in Florence and then in Paris where I saw you. And then I went to Milan and then I went back to Paris. And yeah, I've just been on the road for 2 weeks.
This is as a result of you working across both design and fashion. Any design takeaways from the fashion reporting? Anything you saw?
Actually, the Louis Vuitton set, have you seen this online? It was this massive house that he recreated. It looked to me a little bit like a Flexform showroom.
When you said he, you're talking Pharrell Williams.
Yeah, sorry, the big he.
The big he, with a capital H. Pharrell Williams and not a hotel. I mean, can you kind of paint the picture a little bit?
Yeah, so Pharrell Williams, famous obviously for being a music producer, but he's also the creative director of menswear at Louis Vuitton. He has been since 2023. He collaborated with this Japanese firm called Not a Hotel, and they sort of dropped a prefabricated house into the Bois de Boulogne, which is where the Louis Vuitton Foundation is. And it was so sleek. It was a little bit American Psycho in a good way. Like lots of low-slung furniture, blonde wood, steel, glass. And the models would like walk through and sort of interact with the house, and then
so it's like we're getting a little bit of performance art almost. What I'm seeing is Pharrell was revealing a future living concept, which I quite like.
Yeah. The furniture in there is also by him, and it's a line of furniture called Homework that he's going to release soon.
I mean, I'm actually
he does it all. He literally does it all. He does music. He does fashion. He's now a designer. Like honestly, what can you not do?
Well, it's making me think of this thing as well that you sent me the other day of Travis Scott, interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine, but he was talking about how he wants to be an architect and this whole idea that he thinks renders are cool. It started off really simple. It was like, I think renders are cool. I'd like to learn how to make things. But then he made this point about the fact that he's looking for things in the world that move him, and architecture moves him, music moves him, furniture moves him. So I think this is like, you know, if Pharrell's doing it all, I think it's a really natural thing for creatives to want to kind of shape everything from a menswear collection through to, a standalone pavilion, which it does look beautiful all the way across to, I guess, a furniture collection as well.
Yeah. And you've been on the road as well. You've been in Saudi Arabia. Tell me about that.
I have. So I was there for the AlUla Arts Festival 2026, which runs until the end of February. And to paint the picture, AlUla is in the northwest of Saudi Arabia, desert environment, but it's a location of an ancient Arabian oasis. And it is one of the most remarkable landscapes I've ever been in. It is, I've said this repeatedly. Today's my first day back in the office as well, and I have said this repeatedly. I'm from a place that is beautiful. It's breathtaking. It's a biodiversity hotspot.
The suburbs of Perth, Western Australia.
Firstly, the inner suburbs of Perth, Western Australia, but Western Australia as a whole, just a remarkable, gorgeous landscape. I think the thing that made it so impressive was the scale of it. I want to talk a little bit about the residency and the people that participated. And
are they from around the world?
From all over the globe. Okay. So they're invited in, they spend some time in the landscape, they get to know the people, they get to know the place. And I think, sometimes we can kind of be like, oh, well, why are we parachuting people in? But I think there's also something to be said from the outside perspective and people asking questions and paying respect to the way things were, done in the past or what's taking place in the present in this place. I mean, one of the highlights for me was a studio called Thus That, who were basically looking at the pace of development that was taking place in AlUla, in the region. There's so much being built all across Saudi Arabia as they look to deliver on their vision for 2030. There's a lot of aluminium being produced. There is, as a result, a lot of waste from aluminium. So they were looking at how the slag, which is a waste.
What did you just say?
They're looking at how the material slag is a waste product from aluminium that's often discarded. They were looking at how that can be repurposed to make materials. It almost looks volcanic. What I really like about this was they were interrogating what's taking place in the region and looking for opportunities. By doing this, I think they're also highlighting the need, and I talked to them a little bit about this, but the need for a framework for, new materials. Like so often, these guys from Thus That can develop something like this with slag, but there's not the framework to allow it to be used on buildings because there's not the specification or the coding for it. There's a real nerdy kind of technical side to it. And then there's also, the capacity and demand side for things. These are designers that are working at more of a craft level at a scale that is, experimental and testing and pushing boundaries. That's something that Luca Nichetto, Murano, Venice-born designer, also spends a lot of his time in Sweden. That's something that he does in his work, which is where we're going with our first interview of today's show. So he's launching Nichecraft, which is a project that blends design, research and experimentation through capsule collections that he basically commissions himself to do and through collaborations with other brands. Let's hear from Luca now as he introduces the idea of Nichecraft to us.
So Nichecraft is, for me, like a platform, a real need. Because after 25 years that I'm doing what I'm doing, I can see a big change. Not really my practice, but mostly in the industry. And recently, not so recently, I realized that I need a space where I can rediscover the freedom, but also the commitment on research, believing in a project, doing something that really comes from my heart or from my passion, because I'm lucky enough that my job is also my passion. And I realized that for many years there was something weird in the industry, and I was not really able to, point it out what was. And I started thinking I need to do something by myself. I want to do, some space to express myself, but I don't want to do collectible because I feel that I'm a designer. Collectible for me was something that really doesn't match what is my idea of design.
So we're going to keep going with the Nichecraft in a second because there is a beautiful build up to this. But I want to unpack that for a moment.
Yeah.
I feel like collectible design is on the rise. Why does that not sit well with you as a designer? Is it that it makes it exclusive and design's meant to be for everyone, or is there something more to it?
Oh, there is many angles on that. I have nothing against collectible. But I think it's becoming some kind of celebration of hype. For me, design is not hype.
What is design?
Design for me is something that is a big question, by the way. But I can say for me what is this. In Italy, when I study design, we don't call design, we call disegno industriale. That if we translate in English is industrial design. But today, if you say industrial design, it's very specific. But for Italy at that time, industry was small companies that was coming from an artisan world So design was everything that is done to be produced in series of 5, series of million, but you need to think about a product that can be reproducible in multiple.
And collectible doesn't do that?
No.
Because it's one-offs and...
I'm from Murano, and, Venini, Baroviere Toso, many companies from Murano.
Amazing glass-blowing company.
Yeah, they are doing collectible. No. Their pieces are going to be collect. Yes. But that pieces, even if they are completely handmade, was designed and thought to be produced in series.
Let's come back. So you recognize that you don't want to do collectible design, but you feel like there's something missing in the industry that you're not getting in your work. How does this start to evolve? I know Nichecraft is a 5-year process.
Yeah.
So jump off from that point of being like, okay, I don't want to do collectible, but I want to change something.
Yeah. And then I start thinking to build a team inside my studio ready to go with this kind, to the rollout of this idea. But mostly, I was not able to really point it out what was the frame where I want to work. One day, I realized that what I want to do is exactly what I was mentioning before, to design products that can be also in a numbered edition, because I don't want to work with huge stock. Need to be a space that allowed me to maintain my core business as a studio, but I will treat this Nichecraft as a client. I don't want to do something that is becoming too big to have a headache in running, but to find a space that give me again that vibes to make research, to find different typology. I want to do a watch, I want to do a pen, I want to do a sneaker, I want to do a tote bag, whatever, is becoming a container that give me again that energy that in the past I was able to find in the industry. And today the industry, sadly, for me, change. It's not that I can change that, even if I try to fight most of the time. But I need to accept that today is like that. But I need to have something that remember me why I'm doing what I'm doing today. When I'm saying that, I don't believe that design need to be decided by an Excel file with, numbers and profits and losses and investment or whatever is behind. I really want that the passion is the driven.
What you've done essentially is create a space within your own studio practice it's not just even draw products and make prototypes, but it's to actually make products that people will collect, people will purchase, numbered editions. So, because I think that's it. From the outside looking in, people are saying, oh, Luca Nichetto's got an amazing collaboration with this band and this brand and this brand, but there's industry to that versus Nichecraft, which is about exploring ideas and making a product because you want to test a concept.
Yes, exactly. I probably will do a lot of mistakes, but I need the industry allowed me to do mistakes because it's only through mistakes that you can do great things later on. And you learn you build a community, and that maybe community that you meet during that mistakes later on will help you to do a great thing. So, but if you are always playing and working on a sort of frame that is dictated by number, automatically you always play in a sort of safe situation. Otherwise, you are not able to generate quickly that. So that is creating this kind of, fluttering.
Of ambition, of ideas.
Exactly. And you look around and everything looks the same. Everything is very flat. You don't recognize anymore what product is done by one company or another. I say, if I don't find in the industry something like that, I will build myself. Or at least I would try to build myself.
When did the industry start to change, though? I mean, you've been running your studio for 25 years.
I think, to be honest, start at least 15 years ago, the big...
So people are being less risky. They just want to make sure that they're not necessarily delivering on ambition, but delivering on a bottom line.
I think the moment that this happened is mostly when the venture capital start to jump and acquire family-run company. The manager... in general, I have nothing against managers. There is amazing manager, but when you have a company where is the name or your surname written there, you have much more to save. And
you care about the product.
You
more.
care. Sometimes the feeling is that when it's manager that is running the company, They are doing things for 5 years. They are, bonus on the how much money they will push the company to grow. And then maybe they leave and they move to another company. So there is not attachment to the history or to the proudness of to be part of that. But it's mostly to numbers.
So then you also mentioned there that, we're talking about industrial design in Italy when you studied it. It is about industry. It's about, 10,000.
Yeah.
And it's got these roots in this, this artisan heritage of workshops. Have we drifted away from that as well? Is this where the craft component comes in, that skill set that maybe has been lost and you're perhaps trying to revive with these projects?
100%. There is also that area that for me is very important because especially being Italian and even more being Venetian in that sense from Murano, I really observe how also that kind of skill are going to be sadly lost if we are not doing nothing to preserve that. I believe that during these years, I saw that, of course, also society changed, so there is no young guys that want to spend a lot of time, for example, in Murano in the front of 1,000 degrees to, melting glass or whatever.
In front of a furnace, yeah. It's not, put me in front of a spreadsheet, actually.
Exactly.
It's like...
Exactly. So it's the less effort, a lot of revenue, almost on that. But anyway, I believe that as a designers is also our mission in a way to try to preserve that kind of skills. And I can say that especially when I become father and I was bringing my kids in Murano in some furnace that I know the owner, etc. And I was thinking, imagine if one day my grandson or wherever are not able anymore to see the beauty of creating something as I was able to see, or my son was now able to see partially because they don't see all the skills that I was able to observe. That would be a disaster because it's not only related to design, that part, or to business. Is also part of a culture. And so if we are not able to preserve that, part of our culture will disappear. And I think this is an example of Murano, but I think it's worldwide this is happening.
That was Luca Nichetto. I mean, I want to ask you quickly, Grace, what do you make of Luca's reaction against this idea of collectible design? Because we talk about it all the time on the show, but how do you see that?
It's so interesting because he's talking about it within the context of craft, and usually we lump in craft and collectible design on one end of the spectrum and industrial design and mass production on the other. So it's funny that he's sort of finding his own nuance in there. What about you?
I think we're just quick to label things. I feel like I wasn't really thinking about collectible design as something that was necessarily separate from industrial design. I see this as a spectrum, everything now is a spectrum. It's this whole idea that the most collectible thing can be something that influences something that eventually goes into industrial production. So I do kind of see them working hand in hand. The other thing you talked about, which I quite liked, was kind of like a slowing down, and actually an analogy he used off air, which I really loved, was that he almost wants design to go back to being like dating in the good old days before Tinder. He said so often we're quickly viewing things or looking things on our phone, we're swiping, we're buying. He wants to go back to going to shops, seeing things, touching things, physically feeling things. And I think that has been, we talked about it at the start of the year. This was your ethos for 2026. So maybe you and Luca are kind of aligned. I think the point that he's making with that is it's also about, I guess, connecting with people. And that's not something we can do on screens. That's something we need to do in person. It's this idea of building a community. And his view on it was that by doing that, it kind of lets you make mistakes. Do you think that designers these days are playing it too safe? Do you think there's an element of risk that's kind of been stripped out?
I wonder if it's the designers or the people commissioning these designs that are playing it safe. I don't know if people's taste in general is becoming a little bit too safe. We've sort of come out of 10 years of Beigeification and Nordic modernism, sort of retold for the modern day. I don't know. Are people playing it too safe? That's a good question.
Maybe this is also speaking to if we're going to bring back in collectible design again, perhaps the rise of it is also about, and because often collectible design do have imperfections and mistakes built into them. And this is a reaction, I guess, against that, perhaps. Maybe we're seeing both take place at the same time. I want to change gears. You mentioned the office and the idea of collectible design being in the office. Our next interview is with David Galullo. He is an interior designer that specialises in office design. What does the office mean to you? When we're in London, we tend to be in the office, but we're on the road so often. So where does the office kind of sit in what does the office mean to you?
I like our office. I think it's very beautiful and aesthetic. When I see other people's offices, I think they look really bad. But I think it's just really good to have separation for me from my home environment and to come into the office. I mean, all of this is very basic human psychology, I'm sure, but I feel like I can work more in the office because that's where I'm supposed to be working, and having good design can help.
And this is sort of part of the vision of David Galullo, who is a chief creative officer at Rapt Studio. They blend architecture, interior design and cultural practice to create amazing workplaces. I mean, Google, Dropbox, Duolingo, these are like the heavy hitters. I feel like you see a news article that's like, you're never going to believe this workplace. It tends to be one of those sorts of companies. But the aim of Rapt Studio is to craft environments that create belonging, influence behaviour and define organisational identity. I mean, that's kind of something that I feel like we've got embodied in our own office.
To find out more, Monocle on Design's very own producer, Hassan Anderson, met Galullo at Midori House in London, where we are currently sitting, and he began by asking about Rapt's holistic approach to design.
The idea of Rapt really was that there are too many streams. There are too many inputs to just think about something from an architectural standpoint and from an interior design standpoint. So we built a team that is, and there's a lot of words thrown around these days, interdisciplinary. So we have brand designers and graphic designers, industrial designers, architects, interior designers, strategists that come to bear on a suite of projects. We're kind of a little bit all over the place, but every project we do takes into account all of those inputs and the way that people understand a brand or an organization. And, it's hard to just say, well, we're going to design an office space, or we're going to design a store, or we're going to design an experiential, weekend event without understanding how the folks that are going to experience those things experience everything else about the brand. Rapt really came about to bring a bunch of voices to the table that all have different experience levels, different life experiences that can make a project come from a place that's not just, straight down the line architecture. And I think once you start to realize that design is about understanding how people come together and how they exist in a place, that transcends kind of project types.
How do you go about ensuring that you are doing this placemaking? What are the first granular steps you take to finding out, okay, what does this space need?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have offices in San Francisco, New York, and LA. And San Francisco right now is the center of AI boom. Feels very much like the initial dot-com boom those many years ago. But there's lots of activity. There's lots of workplace being designed for these folks that are really designing the future of how we engage with work. And there's lots of talk about how AI is going to replace us all and going to all be in the machine and we'll be able to go off and sit with our feet up. The interesting thing, and we're working for some of the largest AI companies as well as a bunch of startups. The interesting thing is they're really pushing on spaces that feel analog, that feel good, that are well crafted, that are textural, and bring about kind of the sensual and emotional input that a really well-designed space does. That's to remind these folks that are developing this incredible new technology that it has to be rooted in real space and real feeling and people. At the end of the day, it's about how we all use that technology to make our lives better. So it's not very slick kind of futuristic offices. It's very, one might use the term hospitality around it. Its focus is on the craft of how you put something together so that when someone arrives to that office every day, they feel like they've been transported into a place that's been cared for, that's been put together very deliberately, that's built around purpose of people coming together and connecting in the most human way, which is really wonderful to see.
Post-COVID, we've seen working from home become the norm, then hybrid working become the norm. And now in Silicon Valley, we've seen the emergence of an intense workplace culture come back, like the 996 regime, where, it's 9 to 9, 6 days a week if you're not ready to do that. Some people have been pushed out of job interviews because of not saying yes to that idea. So it's really been this seesawing experience post-pandemic. That suggests that it's also about the way you approach the space. Do you try and make that part of what you do as a designer, the idea that there should be this kind of culture of work that complements the space? And how does the input for you and Rapt work in that sense?
Yeah, it's impossible to disconnect the culture from the space. And, we're constantly asked about how you bring people back to the office. Well, there are a couple of ways. One, you force them back. Some of our clients are doing that. When you say force, they're basically saying, we think the work is better when you're doing it together in the office. The other way is to design spaces that make people actually give people what they need. Not just, if I'm going to sit at a desk by myself and shut out the world, I might as well do that at home. But if I'm going to come together in my team, it's more than just a living room with coffee service. It's actually the kinds of spaces that allow our team to do the best work.
How do you go about measuring how successful this new design has been on fostering feeling and fostering productivity?
Yeah, measurement's always hard.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're talking about feeling or productivity. At some point, it was all the rage to, develop systems to define and measure productivity in a knowledge worker. It's just not possible. And I think what you need leadership in the organization that has a gut feel when something feels right, when their people are showing up in a way that puts out better work and brings about a culture. Architecture doesn't build culture, but it can certainly support and bolster culture. We talk a lot about ritual. We do a lot of change management with clients to help to build rituals within a new office space. You buy a new car, someone talks you through how to use most of the bells and whistles. Oftentimes an office space is developed and there's a lot of great thinking put in it, and then you just throw someone into it that's used to using an old office space and they have no idea how to get the most out of it or how to navigate their way through to find a place where they might be their best selves.
How did you arrive at the idea that design spaces are meant for creating these communal experiences and these feelings within people? When did you come to that realization, and why do you believe that's to be the real key to good design?
I'd love to say I was sitting on a mountaintop in some extraordinary yoga pose and it all came to me. I think it was a direct reaction. There's a lot of talk right now in workplace design, for example, around hospitality as a design concept. And unfortunately, the way that manifests itself is it's a bunch of throw pillows and a bunch of mass-produced stuff that gets put on shelves and curated within an inch of its life. And there we have a hospitable space. Moving through my life and reacting to spaces that look good in photographs but actually don't feel good in person made me start to think about how we did what we do and what kinds of inputs we need to consider to maybe do a better job of that. And so hospitality is very much about kind of feeling comfortable from a spatial aspect, but it's also about services and the kinds of things. When you go to a great hotel, it's great if it's beautiful. If the services are terrible and the housekeeping is awful, and it comes with a certain sense of service, of being cared for, that you need to think about in design. It needs to be beautiful, but it also needs to mean something at the end of the day.
That was David Galullo of Rapt Studio in conversation with Monocle's Hassan Anderson. He talked a little bit there about drawing the link between good design and good hospitality, and that sometimes being overlooked today. And what I liked about that is the idea that design, I think so often people think design stops at the physical product or the physical space, but the reality is you can kind of design systems to look after people. You can, whether that's for hiring the right kind of staff or designing a process that's about taking care of you. I mean, can you think of, for you spent so much time in hotels recently. Is there somewhere where the hospitality experience has been second to none?
I loved my Paris hotel this past week. It's called Nuage. It's in the 8th arrondissement, and it's like girl heaven in there. Like, it's so stunning. The furniture's all low and like soft and boucle, and all the colors are like soft pink and soft green, and like the lighting is gorgeous, and it's just women in there. It's the weirdest thing. Like, you're not allowed to go. You're not.
Well, I could go, but
No, you're not. And like the breakfast buffet is just like fresh fruit and yogurt and like chia seeds. It was like girl heaven, and like that transpired through everything, like from the design and then also the people who were there and the guests who were there. So it did feel like there was a little bit of a community going on during Fashion Week.
It sounds like every detail has been considered beyond just what the space looks like, but it's also, I guess, the food that's being served, how you're greeted when you arrive.
Like, we were handed little butter madeleines as soon as I arrived. It was so cute, like a coffee and a madeleine, so chic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, don't go. It's not for you. It's not for you. It's okay.
To kind of wrap up today's show, because it's always kind of fun trying to draw a thread between our various guests, but they both talked about good design having community at its core. This is something that we've talked about, and something that we've even featured in our design directory, the Monocle's print publication dedicated to design. I mean, is there an outstanding design community that you've encountered?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Paris. I feel like there's a real hive mind going on, and I've spoken about it before on the show, but some sort of communal wave seems to be sweeping through the city. Like, they've got all these new little restaurants and cafes and bistros and like interior design and pieces, and I feel like there's so much support for each other as well. They've got different design weeks and they all come to each other's openings. Yeah, it's really nice to see, especially in quite a big city like Paris. I think London could learn a lot from Paris. What about you?
I think more than anything, it's about an ecosystem, and they have that in Paris, where it is big studios, small studios, it is galleries, it is institutions kind of all working together. And I think it's recognizing that the best communities aren't, singular in the type of organizations and the type of people that are involved, but it's about having this breadth of perspective and kind of respecting and honouring that more broadly. And isn't that a beautiful way to end today's show? That's all we've got for you. For more design stories, pick up a copy of Monocle magazine. Today's episode was produced and edited by Hassan Anderson and Elliot Greenfield. I'm Nick Manice.
I'm Grace Charlton. Thank you for listening.